Have you ever found yourself in that uncomfortable space between where you started and where you aspired to be? You know, that space where it feels unclear, unsteady, and let's just be honest, downright messy. That, my friends, is the messy middle. And today we're going to be unpacking with someone who knows exactly what it takes to push through and grow through those uncertain times. Welcome back to another episode of Work It, Live It, Own It, the podcast where we help busy women create harmony in their personal and professional lives. I'm your hostess, Sekola Lair, your work-life harmony strategist, and today's conversation is a must listen and must watch if you're on YouTube, because if you've ever been stuck between your past self and that version of yourself that you aspire to be, that you're emerging to become. Our guest, Sabine Gedeon, is a transformational coach, speaker, and the founder of She Leads Network. She helps emerging leaders and high achieving women find clarity, confidence to navigate change, find purpose with their personal breakthroughs. Welcome to Work and Live It, Own It, Sabine. How are you doing today?
I am well, Sekola. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on. To dive right in, let's talk about that messy middle. What does the messy middle mean to you?
And when we were talking before, you're like, give tips on how people will know when they're there. And I'm like, oh, girl, they know. When you are in it, you know. You captured it so beautifully, right? So, we are often, especially entrepreneurs or people who are really ambitious, goal driven, we are always looking at that next level, right? And so it's that space where you know who you're becoming, or you can see that goal that you've created for yourself, or that next peak of the mountain, so to speak. But you also see where you are. You're not where you started. You're somewhere in the middle. We're not down in the valley where things stuck, but we're also not at that place where we want to be. And for individuals who are high achieving, ambitious, type A, that is the worst part of the process. And it's worst part of the process, not because, anything is bad, but logically, we know that if we're planning something out, step A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, leads to E. And you're somewhere where like elemental P, where it's not quite clear how
Mm,
you're going to get to that next level. And so, the work that I've been doing for the last couple of years is really helping high achieving individuals not move away from getting stuck in that messy middle, move away from creating stories around what being in that messy middle really means about them and about their journey, and helping them see like past the discomfort of the transformation that's happening. Because when we're in that messy middle, it's not just the goal, right? It's not where we are with the goal. It's what's happening inside mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and being able to navigate shedding that old version of ourselves while also embracing that new version of ourselves.
I'm glad you were just completely honest. We know when we're in the messy middle. We know, right? I don't care how much we want to deny it to ourselves. We know, but it is often overlooked, right?
Mhm.
Because we want to just get from A to Z, or if you're like me, I have the goal, like the final product that I want, and I know I got to take those steps backwards to get to that point, right? But then sometime in the middle, we we see ourselves getting stuck because things are not working out exactly like we thought they would, or goals are not being met, or we keep trying, we keep knocking, we keep trying to pursue these things and we're not getting that feedback that we need. And so it is critical, right? The messy middle is critical, but it is often overlooked and it's part of the process. But why do you think people persist or resist that messy middle? Why do you think people try to overlook the messy middle?
Yeah. You know, I don't know that it's so much that they overlook it, other than more than it is that they're just trying to get bypass it. right? It's more of a, this is the uncomfortable space and I don't like being here. So I'm just going to try to bypass it, which is why you find people trying to create, creative solutions or going around or maybe even abandoning ship and trying something different because that space feels unfamiliar. It feels uncomfortable. And for the individuals that I deal with, that loss of control, or I think it's more like the reality that we don't have control, that loss of control is a very destabilizing and disorienting space to be in. And so what I found is for myself too, I'm speaking about me for sure. I am my first client here, is that when we can't see the outcome, right? Most of us were visionaries, right? And that becomes the polarity of the thing where you can have the vision and you can see the vision so clearly, but you know that there are, or you assume that there are 100 steps to get there. And then you start walking and you're at 102 and you're like, wait a minute. I thought there was 100 steps. What's happening? Oftentimes what we're challenged in that space is really identifying a couple of different things. One, how much do we trust ourselves? Right? We are really challenged in those moments, in that messy middle of really identifying, do I trust myself to get to whatever step it is? Am I okay with surrendering to the fact that I don't know how many steps it takes? Right? This messy middle is, I think it's God's, the universe, whatever you subscribe to. That's the place where transformation happens. And that's the place that preparation really truly happens. It's not when we sit down with our vision boards or with our charts or our Trello boards and all that other stuff and map it out. The transformation happens when we can say, in order for me to really become this person, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's a six-figure business owner, whatever the goal is, I have to become someone different. And while our foundation and the way that we get there or we start to move forward is supportive, we're going to find, all right, in order for me to become that person, I have to let go of this belief that I'm not worthy. I have to let go of this belief that, if I don't do it, like no one else will support me. I have to let go of all these things. I almost see it like what was it, Erica Badu's song back in the day, Bag Lady, right? We're going
Mhm.
on a journey, but we have all these suitcases that we have to let go along the way in order to be able to freely climb that next mountain.
I like the fact that we do have to let go of certain things because our minds are wired and programmed for us to be safe and to remain safe, right? Because originally we'll think about this goal, this vision that we have. We are visionaries for the most part because we have goals that we aspire to achieve or things personally that we aspire to become. But yet when we think it's going to take a certain amount of time or l- processes or steps, as you call it, and then life is life, and it doesn't end up that way, then our brains want us to think, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't have done this. Maybe we should just go back to where we were because we want to be comfortable. And I've seen that with so many people who are artists or they doubt themselves because all of a sudden someone did not like their stuff or what they've created, and that kind of sets them back and deters them. But you also really focus on and you talk a lot about inner leadership and identity work. So how can someone begin to lead themselves even when everything else around them feels unstable and uncertain?
hmm If I may just share a personal story to kind of highlight that. So, a little while back, I had this goal, right? I had this, to your point, the She Leads Network. You mentioned that in the bio. And so I had been dreaming about She Leads Network since like 2017. I literally still have like Word documents of like, what I was planning for it. I didn't take action immediately. And then somewhere around like 2020, 2021, I launched it. And I launched it very small. I found myself in a space where like I just did it, right? Because it was just like, Sabine, you gotta take action here. While I was running it for the first 6 months, I found myself feeling a little disconnected, meaning that the individuals, like I was just like, anybody could be part of this, right? That's the big casting the big vision. I quickly realized that I could not serve the members in the way that each needed to be because, for the person who was employed, I was this person to them. For the person who was in entrepreneurship, I was trying to create content here. And so I realized that, okay, this is good. This is a good start, but I need to reconfigure this. So I took a step back. I shut down the network and I gave myself probably about like 6 to 8 months before I was just like, okay, now that we've regrouped, we've got a little bit of clarity, let's relaunch it. And at that point, I felt like I was in my zone. Like I knew exactly what it needed to be. I saw where it was going to go. I saw how big it was going to be. And I was full speed ahead. My marketing strategy, everything months into the relaunch and the rebuilding of this thing, and I got served a cease and desist for the name She Leads. And so again, that was another devastating moment because at that point it was just like, wow, not only was I doing all this work to bring it back for the vision, but this is this thing that I've been dreaming about or birthing for, the last 5 years at this point. And so the initial part of me, right, the type A in me was like, okay, fine. I will rename, I will rebrand, and it's gonna be big. And it's gonna be everything and da 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 da. And then I found myself moving towards that energy, and it was just like, this doesn't feel right. This feels exhausting. This feels draining. This doesn't I'm not doing this because I have a passion to serve in this capacity anymore. I'm doing this because I'm feeling some type of way about what just happened. And so I had to take that step back and say, all right, Sabine, why did you start this? Like what was foundationally the why in your heart for wanting to go down this journey? And I had to reconnect back to that. And not only did I had to reconnect back to that, Sokola, but I also had to be honest with myself that there was a part of me from childhood, right? I was still trying to gain validation. I was still trying to prove something. This whole thing that I had concocted and I had built, and it was well, it had the potential to be successful, but like it wasn't even really rooted in who I was anymore. I told you I'd been dreaming about it since 2017. By the time this happened, it was 2023. Like I was a different person at that point. And so I had to be honest with myself that, Sabine, who you were when you started this journey is not who you are right now. And you holding on to this is not in service to who you are now and the people that you're called to serve in this capacity. And so I had to surrender it. And that was a process. Now I'm going through this. This is real for me. It's not until after that hump, if you will, that I realized, well, that was all part of the messy middle. That was all part of the redirection. That was all part of the shedding and the letting go and the letting the baggage and the healing and the restoration. And so I spent a good year, while I was still servicing clients in a different capacity, I started focusing on, okay, well, where else do I need to heal? Because if I was building this whole thing and I put all this energy and all this effort and it was rooted in all of this like childhood baggage, right? The next thing I build, I want to build that from a space of freedom. I want to build that from a space of love, of truth, of power, so that I could attract clients who are in that particular space. So it forced me to do a lot of personal development work and mindset work like we should be doing anyways as entrepreneurs. Um, but I was now doing the work with the understanding that the more I'm able to uncover, unravel, detangle, and decondition, the better I can show up for myself, the better clients I'll attract, and the more impact I'll be able to have on them. And so that took me into a space of once I did that and I started moving forward, my transformation happened as a result of what some people would have used as their reason to just abandon ship or their reason to, drive themselves to burnout. That was the shift that I wouldn't have asked for. I definitely wouldn't have asked for
Right.
it. But that was the catalyst while in the messy middle that allowed me to align with a deeper purpose, deeper resonance for what I was doing and who I was called to serve. So that when I came out of that, now I have such clarity. There's such peace. There's such harmony within myself that those are the types of people that I'm attracting now. And I'm able to support them not from a place of striving to feel validated, but standing in the confidence of who I am and what I bring to the table.
There were so many pieces in that, and thank you for sharing your personal journey because we can come on camera, we can go on podcasts, and we can say, "Here's the steps, here's the practical strategies." And I do that a lot too, but the realness of it, the journey and the story, the process, that messy middle is a lot what people resonate with. A lot of times we resonate with the beginning. This is how I started. Look at where I am now. But it's that messy middle that I think sometimes is so overlooked. And you touched on it because if you think about it, there's this three fork part where that you touched on. You could have been like, no, I'm gonna be bigger, better than ever before, or I could just stay stagnant, discouraged, right? Because when we are discouraged, we become a punching bag because we can't move. We become paralyzed with fear. But then you also took the other route. You took the other route. Behind door number 3, it was okay, let me take a step back. Let me regroup. And a lot of times people don't want to do that, especially entrepreneurs. They don't want to face that reality that sometimes I need to stop. I need to just take a step back. I need to disappear from social media, from the public eye for a few months and let me regroup. Let me get myself back together. That's part of harmony, people. That's part of finding that harmony in your personal and professional life. Being honest enough with yourself to say, I need to take a step back and figure out what is my purpose, my true purpose. Why did I start this from the beginning? Because if we stay aligned with our purpose, then how we show up is so genuine and it's so authentic and it feels so right versus saying, okay, well, fine, y'all didn't like me before. Well, I'm going to prove y'all wrong. Again, like you said, that's seeking that external validation. And who is that really serving at the end of the day? It's not serving anybody because are you going to be able to show up for your clients in the best way possible? No. And of course, if you take the middle road where you're stationary and you're discouraged and you're paralyzed with fear, you're not helping yourself. So sometimes we got to let that pride, we got to let that ego go, and we got to be honest with ourselves and talk about if we're really about transformation, if we're really about growth, then we got to learn how to sit back and help ourselves so that we can grow. So thank you so much for sharing that story. That was awesome. And I hope that resonates with a lot of you and take some personal insights and tools from Sabine's story. Now, Sabine, what you touched on some of the biggest myths already, but what are some more myths about transformation and personal growth that we need to unlearn?
Mm, That it's easy, that it feels good, that in a specific amount of time that you've allocated, that you'll get through it. It's especially in the entrepreneurship space, in the marketing space, right? Like, how many times do you see these coaches like, yeah, you could start a business. I started my business and I made 6 figures in the first 3 months, right? And the story here's my system. Here's the system that I use that you can use too. What they don't tell you was this is their fifth business, right? This is their fifth time starting a business. What they don't tell you is that, they invested thousands, if not, tens of thousands of dollars in coaching, in training, and all that other stuff to get them to that place. I always liken it. I love looking at nature because I feel like nature gives us clues and a better understanding of this human experience, right? So if I had a seed, like an apple seed, right? If I had an apple seed and I put it on the windowsill right now, what would happen to it? It would just be a crunchy apple seed, right?
Right.
No
Dried up.
purpose. Right. But
Mhm.
that same seed, if I went outside, I dug up soil, right, deep enough, I placed that little seed in there, and then I pounded all of the soil on it. I watered it on a regular basis. I let it get the sunshine that it needed, right? It would grow up to be another apple with a whole bunch of seeds inside of it. When we look at how nature grows, like I'm here on the West Coast, but I grew up on the East Coast, right? Look at the seasons, right? The trees at one point during the fall, like they shed all of their leaves. And then in the bare winter, they have nothing to protect them. And then next thing you know, spring comes around and now here we are budding, right? And so
Yes.
the
Yes.
process, it's not going to feel good. There is nature shows us you shed before you grow, right? You have to shed before you grow. Also, sometimes in that messy middle and that growth process, it's going to be isolating because in that moment I can articulate now what I felt, what I experienced, what the process was. But when I was going through it, like there weren't words for me to describe to anyone what I was truly experiencing, no matter how graphic I got. And so it is a very isolating experience. If you think about the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, right? The caterpillar is with its crew, they're eating, and then it goes away into the cocoon, right? Which is this tough chrysalis. It's isolated. Its entire identity and DNA is dismantled before it starts to form this new body, this new identity, and grow these wings that it then has to struggle its way out of so that it could build strength. And so the process of growth is not a group or team experience. It is individual. And it's going to feel like, for a lack of better term, death. And most of that is more of an ego death, right? Like parts of you have to die away so that the new parts of you can form. I just think that when people are in that space, that's when it gets scary. That's when it's so isolating. That's when you feel the most out of control. And people want to run back to safety. Like you said, the mind is conditioned to keep us safe and to keep us familiar. And so if you're in that space, you're in that messy middle, you feel isolated. First and foremost, that feeling is just that it's a feeling. Because know that everyone who's ever done anything worthy of talking about has experienced that. So while your mind will tell you that you're the only person in the world who has ever experienced, that's not true. I've experienced this, Nicola experienced it. Everybody has experienced it. But understand that it's part of the process. It's part of the journey. It's not there to take you out. It's there to actually bring forward some light of the things that you need to deal with. And I think the other piece too, in terms of myths, is that you only have to go through it once. That's a lie. That is a lie. If you are a growth-oriented person, understand that this is the cycle that we're gonna continue to go through. And I think one thing people don't talk about enough is that grieving process that we go through when we're growing, right? Like most people associate grief with like death and all that other stuff, and that is true. But there is a grief that we experience. We go through that cycle over and over again as we grow. Think about when when you got married or when you moved or when you got a promotion, right? Everyone gets happy about the thing, but then think about it. Now you've left what was familiar. You've left your friends. You've outgrown your peers, right? There's a process that we experience. So, that myth of, hey, it's going to be gravy, it's not. It's not going to feel good. But understand that if you are in that place of complete discomfort and feeling completely out of control, you are right where you're supposed to be.
Exactly. Nature is a great lesson for us. I have a friend who loves fall, right? And a lot of people say, "Oh, I love fall because I love the colors on the trees." And yes, I'm on the East Coast, so I get the 4 seasons, and I love it. But one of my friends said, "But the trees are dying. The leaves are dying. So they look beautiful to everyone else, but that is the tree shedding and getting rid of things and going bare, being exposed in order for regrowth to happen." And yes, it is a grieving process because if you think about it, this is not just for the business world or entrepreneurship, it could be about weight loss, right? If I've gone through a portion of my life where I had gained weight because of medication, and then I took the hard route, the challenging route to lose the weight naturally, right? And then when I started feeling really good about myself, I had people going, "Girl, you need to eat. What's wrong with you? How much more weight are you going to lose?" And it hurt a little bit because it was like, I'm finally comfortable in my skin. I wasn't anorexic. I was healthy. The clothes was fitting on me right. I didn't have to go, oh my goodness, it's too tight. And I finally had to say, I'll stop when I get comfortable. But then that external validation kicks in. And if anyone out there is listening and you've had to deal with that, then you start eating again, right? Or things or events start happening in your life and you're like, well, just give up. And I was talking to someone yesterday who lost a lot of weight and they took the hard route as well of watching what they ate, exercising, drinking their water. And I was like, girl, you looking snatched. I'm like, you looking even more snatched. And she was like, thank you. A lot of people are saying that to me. She said, but she says something that I felt that I could never reveal to anyone else. You know how people say you need to weigh yourself, you need to get on a scale. And I was like, I'm not one of those people that can get on a scale because if I see that I gained a pound or two, then I'm like, oh my God, let me just go ahead and eat this bag of chips.
Mm.
And let me just get on over with. Let me eat this pint of ice cream. Let me just, because my goal is not, I'm not progressing towards my goal. But then in reality, I'm doing an away move. I'm not doing toward moves because I'm not seeing the results that I want. So, yes, there's no overnight success stories. They may seem like it, and that's what's presented a lot of times. But it's not. It's a journey. It's a process. And perfection is non-existent in our world, society. Nothing is perfect to me except for God. But nothing else is perfect. So please don't let the overnight success stories or the perfection myths hold you guys back. Now, Sabine, for someone who's listening right now, who's in the thick of the messy middle, what's one encouraging truth or piece of advice that you want them to hold on to today?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many pieces that go into one, right? It's celebrate the successes, celebrate the little wins, and celebrate the successes. Now, that's going to require a lot, right? Because the last thing you're going to want to do when things aren't going your way is to celebrate the successes. But there's power in that, right? One, you're training your subconscious mind to look for the wins and to move you away from the gloom and doom that is so prevalent, I'm sure, so that you can focus on the good and create more energy towards that. But it also requires a lot of self compassion. It requires a lot of grace towards yourself. It requires you to love on yourself. And I mean that. There are seasons where, like, I literally, like, every day, I love you, Sabine. I love you, Sabine. Like, I had to give myself that because of that space. Otherwise, what I was looking outward didn't reflect that. I think when you're in that space too, making sure that you have your circle tight. So, like the example that you shared, right? No one's going to understand what you're going through. No one has insight into the inner workings of the universe and all the things that are moving around to make this happen for you. And so you owe it to yourself, just like the caterpillar has the cocoon, right? That, like, protects them in their most vulnerable time of change and transformation. Make sure that you've created that small board of group of people, support people that can be your cocoon. They don't have to understand what you're going through. They don't have to necessarily give you advice, but you just need the comfort, if you know, of knowing that at least 2, 3, or however many people that you're supported.
And so true. And I think sometimes there is gifts in the messy middle because when you talk about that tight knit circle of people around you who are truly your support system, because a lot of times it's when you're in that messy middle, when you are in that transformation, when you are trying to break out of that cocoon, is when you find out there are people who don't have your best interest at heart. people that you may have known for a very long time that don't have your best interest at heart, even if it means blood relations, your family. They may think they're doing this to protect you. They may be coming from a place where they think they're trying to protect you, but they don't realize it's hurtful. And so part of that breaking out of that shell, part of breaking through that messy middle is finding who's truly your support system. You're your biggest support system. You're your biggest ally, but you'll also find who your true support system is. Woo, Sabine, what
And if
a
I could
powerful.
just And if I could
Go
just add
ahead.
to that, Sokola, if you think
Mhm.
about it from this perspective, and I love that you framed it that they think that they're trying to protect you, which is true, but understand that your transformation is forcing a transformation on them and their behavior, right? While some of them may be trying to protect you, it's their protective system saying, I don't want to change. I like Sabine the way that she is. I like Sokola the way that she is. And so there, it's almost like a defense mechanism that says, hey, I don't want to change. I don't want things the way that things work between us to change. And so understanding that, while we would love everyone to grow and develop and evolve with us, that's not going to happen. And we ought to respect other people's choices too in not growing and then continue to decide, okay, this is the boundary that you're gonna have to set with this new person in your life. But sometimes, especially when you're in the thick of it, you mentioned the word hurtful. It is very, very hurtful because again, you're in your most vulnerable space. But if you can take that moment to say, okay, their behavior is not actually a reflection of me, it's a reflection of what's happening inside of them. So I may need to give them space so that they can process this change and decide for themselves whether or not they want to adjust to it or move with it. But if they choose not to, cool. Thank you for being with me in my caterpillar season. I'll see you
Mhm.
in the air.
Right. Exactly. And I've heard a lot of celebrities talk about that when they had their start and they're trying to make that transition to reach their goals, that they had to let go of some people along the way because I understand that you don't want me to get hurt, or they want the old person, right? Or they'll just completely turn on you, right? And so it is hurtful and it is harmful, but again, it's part of your growth process. If they choose not to grow for themselves, that's one thing, but don't let anyone stop your personal growth. Surround yourself with people who will help you to become the better person that you want to become, the better entrepreneur that you want to become. Even if it's, I want to be the best mom that I can be, the best me that I can be, whatever it is, make sure that you're doing it for yourself and don't allow discouragement to paralyze you from your fears, and don't steer away from your purpose of why you wanted to set out on this goal in the first place. Sabine, I want to thank you for coming on because this was a powerful conversation. I like to keep our conversation short so that way there's takeaway and people don't get lost in the weeds. But guys, if you are in that place right now where you're questioning your purpose, you're doubting your progress, or you're just feeling things are messier than they should be, I hope today reminded you that this is part of the journey that really truly matters. Growth is not linear, it's layered, and sometimes it's just downright sticky. It can be messy. So I want to give a huge thank you to Sabine Gedeon for joining us and dropping some serious wisdom today. And make sure that you head over and connect with Sabine at sabinegedeon.com and check out her coaching programs, podcasts, and speaking resources. Now, if this episode spoke to you, please, 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 please take a minute to leave a review, share it with a friend, and tag me on social media at Work It, Live It, Own It. What was your biggest takeaway today? And if you're navigating your own messy middle, keep showing up and keep doing that inner work because you're closer than you think. Until next time. Guys, remember to work it, live it, own it. Now, Sabine, before I let you go, what is one daily habit you swear by to maintain harmony and balance in your life?
Yeah, gratitude. And
Mm.
journaling specifically. So I started this practice. I used to do it like every now and then last year I decided to like be consistent with it. So every morning I have my journal and I list 10 things that I'm grateful for. And the first one is always that I woke up this morning. And I also have a morning routine. So here's a mindset tip. So in that, I'm saying I'm so happy and grateful that I woke up this morning and that I started my day successful. And that is my conditioning of my mind that the day has already started successful because I completed my morning routine. But the gratitude is really the way that I structure it is there are a handful of things that I'm grateful for that happened the day before, handful of things that I'm grateful for that are happening today, and then a handful of things that I'm grateful for that I am literally speaking into the future, right? So it's a nice combination of past, present, and future. I'm calling those things in as if they are in this particular moment, and I can't tell you how much that has just changed my life, shifted my day. Like when you're in that energy of gratitude, there's joy, there's love, there's appreciation, there's abundance, there's just so much power to be able to start your day that way. And I know some people like to do it in the evening whenever you do it, but I just there's a magic in gratitude and having that attitude of gratitude to really attract to you the things that you truly want. And especially if you're in the messy middle and there those days where it feels like there is nothing to be grateful for, do it. That's what's
Yeah.
gonna help sustain you.
Love it. I love it. Your past, your present, and your future. Absolutely love it. And guys, leave me a comment on at Work It, Live It, Own It as far as what is your personal mantra as far as thriving through uncertainty. Love to hear from you. Again, find me at Instagram at Work It, Live It, Own It. Until next time, guys, continue to work it, live it, own it in your daily lives. Take care.